If you're just joining us, not quite as compelling. Let's run the floor here. Legs, bad night for Dallas. How concerned are we about Luka, Doncic, and struggle shooting the ball?
Extremely. He just does not have the lift to get into these step-back threes. They're not even close, some of these shots, and this is a critical element of their offense because he can get the shot whenever he wants. He just does not look right. I didn't think his energy was very good last night, probably because mentally it's draining dealing with something like that. But you can see just shot after shot from the perimeter, not close.
Monica, Boston, a blowout of Cleveland in Game 1. Will we need brooms for this series?
I'm not going to go brooms just because we've seen the Celtics kind of take their foot off the gas at points. I will go gentleman sweep, I think, in this one. The Celtics just have too many weapons. You can look at their shooting percentage last night, 50% practically from the field, almost 40% from three, but the rebounding was 55-38. Like, without Jared Allen for the Cavs, it doesn't feel great.
And then, Wendy, everyone was eagerly anticipating everyone's favorite thing, the 2-minute report from the Knicks and Pacers. What has been the reaction? I guess I should go through all the things that were in it here for those who didn't see it. In fact, let's do that, Cindy. Let me go through what was in it, and then we'll let Wendy tell us what they thought. This found a few key things. With 53 seconds left, the refs missed an offensive foul on Donte DiVincenzo, who failed to disengage with Aaron Nesmith, so that we talked about that. A second later, the kickball, which wasn't happened. It was an incorrect call, as we all knew also. Then with 10 seconds left before the refs correctly called a moving screen on Myles Turner, he committed another on a screen he set on Donte DiVincenzo. So those were the things that came out in the 2-minute report of most interest. Wendy, again, you're covering the series for us day in, day out. What can you tell us?
Right. There was rulings on 2 DiVincenzo screens, and it's not going to make the Pacers happy because this was ruled, in fact, the correct call. This was ruled as a missed call. So the Pacers got the wrong end of both of them, both involving DiVincenzo. And then, of course, this play, 2 missed calls right there against the Pacers. In both cases, the Pacers should have had the ball on the possession that broke the tie with the three-pointer. Very hard to swallow, but frankly, not surprising based on the way the officials reacted after the game and the replay center reacted during the game.
We talked at great length about this yesterday. Again, the 2-minute report is what it is. Some people don't like it. I fully understand why they do it and appreciate the transparency. But putting that aside, what's your reaction to what they told us yesterday?
Well, you know how I feel with the 2-minute report.
You hate it.
I can't stand it because it doesn't affect the outcome in any way. It doesn't make anybody feel better. It just enrages fan bases even more. I said to you yesterday, based on that last screen, which you know how I felt about that. And again, I want to be clear about something. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, well, the time is scored in the game, you can't call that. That's not my approach at all. I agree it should be called consistently throughout the game. Here's the problem. It's not. A minute earlier, you saw the screen by DiVincenzo that was not called. That was my big point. If you're not calling that, how in the world are you calling this? And that was my biggest problem. Not the fact that it was a game-deciding, potentially possession. It's the consistency within the game.
Right here.
Yeah, and here's the thing about that. Here's what trips me out about that. They're saying the reason that was a missed call was because he clamped his arm. So the 2-arm, right there, the 2 arms coming up into his shoulders with full extension and like almost a body slam, that's fine. But the clamping of the arm, that's where you went too far, Donte. I don't even understand that part of it. At least that was in a 2-minute report. I would have lost my mind if that wasn't acknowledged, but at least it was. But this doesn't pacify Pacers fans in any way.
No.
It doesn't help Rick Carlisle. It doesn't help them. You know, they know they didn't get that last shot off to potentially win the game.
Okay, why are you looking at me like that, McNutt? What?
Because in theory, I 100% agree with Legs. Consistency is anything that players and coaches ask for, right? And in real time, when that call went down on the radio with my partner, Pat O'Keefe, I was like, ooh. And this is on a Knicks broadcast. That is a tough call. It immediately took me back to the women's Final Four, UConn and Iowa.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that made. But I do think that officiating is just such a difficult job. And I know it's tough for us to appreciate that when you just want them to get it right. And then I will say that throughout the season, we've seen these calls bounce whichever way. Sometimes, I think I won't say it's fair, but I do understand the idea that you end up chalking this up to home court. It's loud, it's busy, and the bounce goes in favor of the home team.
I went to the Pacers practice here in New York yesterday, and they went even on a higher road. Not talking about it again. And Tyrese Halliburton, who just played a terrible game, actually took the blame for that, the angle on the screen, saying that it was partially his fault, that he was too far away from Turner and that he led to that moving screen, to which I said,
wow.
No.
So yesterday, Alan, you had on your radio show Steve Javie, longtime NBA official. And I'll play you a little bit of the sound here because there are many of us who believe, Legs just said he doesn't, but I did. I was one of the pundits yesterday who said in that situation, on the final possession of a one-point playoff game, I don't want the whistle blown there. Steve Javie addressed that yesterday.
For a different era of officiating in which the owners want the letter of the law called, whether it be the first quarter or fourth quarter. And unfortunately, when you hear these pundits saying, well, the situation didn't warrant it and so on and so forth, when these referees go to Secaucus to review this as a challenge, they're not saying, hey, guys, this situation is this situation is that. Even though technically it's a foul, let's not call it because we want the players to win the game, per se, as they say there.
All right, so again, that was from your show with Bartholomew on the radio yesterday in New York. Give us the context of what the context of that conversation.
Yeah, well, the question I asked was exactly what you were talking about, Legs. I just said, when you were an official, do you have that in your head? You don't make that call at this moment of the game, the idea of letting the players decide the game, which is what Myles Turner said afterwards. And that's when he gave that answer, is that he said, I got to go to today, because back then, yes. But today it's different. He mentioned the owners. This is what they want. He said it is a new age, that the owners are very much involved, that they said this. He actually went on when I followed up about that, about the letter of the law and how owners are involved. And he said when you consider the gambling aspect, analytics as well, this is what they want. They want to make sure there is that consistency. I know you're saying there wasn't, but DiVincenzo was called for a screen foul a little bit earlier there. In the possession. But the last thing he said was that there's a lot of things that go into the change of the environment of officiating nowadays in all the sports. And he's talked to officials in other sports, and they are all in agreement that that has become a new thing now, is you don't call that at that moment of the game, because why is it different? Every single minute of a game is supposed to be equal, and that includes the final minute of a game.
So what, Mark, are you buying that? I mean, I fully buy that he's telling us that. And,
yeah. And he said that long ago, that wasn't the case.
Absolutely.
He's saying today it is. That's because the owners want it that way.
Unfortunately might be a strong word, but unfortunately I do buy it, in fact, because of gambling, like in a very real way in terms of how that is changing how we consume sports.
But the consistency of it, again, I don't want to belabor this, but I'm going to anyway. Yeah. So yesterday, Hembo, tell me if I'm getting these numbers right. He told me on the radio yesterday there were 96 screens set in that game that night, and 2 of them were called illegal. So you're going to tell me that, so in that moment, that was one of the 2 illegal screens that were called
about a 3-minute
out of 96?
That is my point.
That's what I'm saying.
I wish I had more time, because I'd love to sit here for an hour and show every screen in the game. Let's watch them all. And tell me how many looked like Myles Turner's. 30, 40 look just like that, and it's fine. No, here's why I had such a problem with it. For me, for an official to make
it was
that
142.
Call,
just to be clear, I greatly understated it.
Yeah, I was
There were
gonna say,
142 screens. I'm sorry, I just was trying to remember the number off the top of my head. 142 screens set in that game. 2 of them were called illegal.
You said that number to me, teeing me up, and I didn't know what the number was, but I was thinking in a game there's 175 to 200 different times you change ends of the floor. I thought it was going to be like 150.
Let's not belabor me getting it wrong.
You were way off. Okay,
let's go back to the point.
No, I wish, here's the thing, what I'm saying is, to call that in that spot, that official, you almost have to be just so intently looking at that for any sort of movement on that screen that you're going to make that call. Or what they're saying, oh, he didn't have enough time to see it. You have to be so anticipating that in that moment to blow that whistle. And that's the part I don't get. But you clearly saw the DiVincenzo screen 40 seconds earlier, and you had to, at the same time in your own head, thinking, okay, no harm, no foul here. So in that one, the anticipation of that contact to blow your whistle in that spot, that's where I have a problem with it.
There's your human element. And you know what happens there during a timeout? Hey, by the way, Myles Turner, he's moving on that screen. Like, he's leaning.
That's a good point, too.
Now it's in his head. And here comes Turner. Oh, you know what? Let me see if he is moving. Oh, yeah, he did move. Blow the whistle.
Yeah, there had to be 40 screens at least set in that game.
Goes on.
That were more significant than Myles Turner's.
Assistant coaches work the officials during timeouts while the head coach is dealing with the players. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. Sometimes veteran players during a timeout will do that. But that's your human element part. But the other part about the arena thing, see, that's where there's not just the officials on the court. There's the alternate who's out in the locker room. There's also, in Secaucus, there is the replay official for the night. They all have to be in agreement. And there's one guy who's not even in the building, so he's not involved in the momentum in the crowd and all that stuff. He's part of the decision.
And let's be clear about this. Once it goes to Secaucus, I have no trouble with them not overturning it.
Yeah.
It was all that person is deciding is it a foul or is it not?
Right.
He's not deciding that we've not called it 140 other times tonight and all of that. The point is the whistle has to be blown in the first place to initiate that. Right? If the whistle is never blown,
right,
no one says a word, and Tibbs is chewing out DiVincenzo last night for flopping in that situation and giving up a wide open shot.
Very true. You got to fight through that, whatever the case may be. But again, like I'm with Hahn, you kind of get to a place where this is the human element of sport. It's funny you mentioned talking to the officials because I'm thinking back through the game. And cooler heads prevailed in terms of the Knicks, but there was constantly a dialogue with the officials in terms of what was and was not happening on the floor. I'm sure we'll probably get one in Indiana.
I'll make this
final word.
very easy and very short. Steve Javie wouldn't have blown the whistle there.